Everybody, this is Rick. Welcome to another edition of Pastor. Have you seen this? So glad that you're here. You're tuning in. And I hope this is interesting to you, where we just kind of give a pastor's take, a Christian worldview take on something you've seen and you would like us to respond to. So if you have something you'd like us to respond to, send it to social@ac3.org, and we'd be happy to respond to it. And maybe this will be important because it'll give you a sense of, okay, how would a Christian worldview interact with this stuff that becomes popular or makes the rounds or is influential? So let's see what the video team has got for me to comment on today.
My wife is Italian, so her favorite food is Italian food. And I'm Asian, so my favorite food is Asian food. Not that it has to be, but it just makes sense. It's, so imagine if I hey, H, I'm going to make some pasta for tonight. And I'm like, but I found this new recipe. You know how you have the tomatoes, and she's like, yeah, okay. I'm like, but what we do is we'll actually take out the tomatoes and we'll replace it with some other type of vegetables like peas and carrots. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna add in some scrambled eggs. And I'm like, okay. And then the final one is we're actually gonna take out the noodles and we're gonna put in rice. She's gonna look at me and she's gonna say, that's fried rice. That's fried rice, that's not pasta. And my fear is the more that we negotiate the Holy Scriptures, we are creating a Christianity that is totally unrecognizable. I'm actually trying to be loving because I'm trying to forecast the future and say, guys, if we keep going down this path, we are comfortably going to be stepping into a place where we don't even know Jesus anymore. My wife is Italian.
Yeah. Okay, so I really agree with this, and increasingly as the church gets marginalized and kind of pulled out of the center of Western culture, and then the forces around us are constantly calling the church to adapt itself to a modern or now a postmodern age. I've been saying this, that if we in the accommodation phase or the accommodation work that we're doing, start to transform our message to make it fit, to make it palatable, to make it understandable to a new context, instead of merely translating. Understand the difference, translating versus transforming. If we don't understand the difference between those two things and be very, very clear about it, we are inventing a new religion. And if we're inventing a new religion, then we need to say that that's what we're doing. If we take all of the premises, and what I love his little illustration, we take all the recipe ingredients of Orthodox Christianity, and let's boil it down to this: what most Christians at most times have and most places have believed to be true, and usually as derived from our Holy Scriptures, and in some sense also from a church tradition, the reflections of devoted Christians on those Holy Scriptures. Okay. Let's take that. That's the recipe. That's Christianity. And we start taking out this element and we replace it with this one. And we substitute this ingredient and we put in this one. Eventually what you have left, he's right, it isn't Christianity anymore. So on our context, we've really, really elevated the work of cultural accommodation. And we think that's really important. Timothy Keller wrote a great book before he passed, all about, kind of how the church is supposed to do cultural accommodation. And every church does cultural accommodation. The church in Korea, the church in Asia, the church in France, the church in Mongolia. All churches do cultural accommodation. And this is good work. Why? Because it imitates a God who sent the Son, and he tabernacled among us, and he translated God into human skin. This is literally our message. The incarnation is a message of, in some sense, cultural accommodation. The Word became flesh. So good work that we should accommodate the gospel to culture, because culture has its own pathways into understanding. And if we really want people to get this good news, we need to accommodate it to the ways and pathways that will be understood and therefore have the best chance of being received. But if we change its core precepts and principles, it's just like this pastor's illustration. We are changing the recipe ingredients, and therefore we're changing the faith. And what's left isn't Christianity anymore. And this is the fraud enterprise of when we turn cultural accommodation into a changing of Christian orthodoxy. So orthodoxy is sometimes looked at as like just even the word itself, orthodoxy. It just kind of communicates a stiffness, a rigidness, an oldness that people maybe want to break from. But there is, or it even communicates pride, right? That's not orthodox. That was a heterodox statement, or that was heresy. And those are very, black and white and very rigid words. They are. But let's understand the word orthodoxy as a humble word. It's a humble word. Why is it a humble word? Because it says, I didn't invent the recipe for Christianity. It was given to me. In the same way that, the Italian recipe for spaghetti is given to me. It was given to me, and everyone liked it. And whoever liked it embraced it and said, I love Italian food. And so if you wanted something that wasn't Italian food, then let's call it Asian food. And so if you don't like Christian orthodoxy, that's fine. It's America. It's a free world. You can not like it. And you can believe something other than the historic creeds and beliefs that were passed down and handed down to us. The right thinking of the church derived again from the Master Jesus and from the scriptures the church left behind. But then let's call a spade, and let's say this is something new and different. Not something merely accommodated to a new cultural context, but something that's completely different. I'm choosing to be Orthodox. I love the idea that in Orthodoxy, I rest. I rest on something that was given to me, and I've chosen to embrace it. And I am not presenting myself as someone who has the right or the insight or the brains or whatever to change it fundamentally. Anyone else who's watching this video, you do have a right to change it if you want, but then let's have the bravery to call it something else. Let's not call it the church. Let's no longer call it Christianity. Let's call it something else. And there have been many times in church history when that's exactly what happened. Early in the 2nd century, Gnosticism arose, and finally it was rejected as not Christianity. And there probably that is happening all the way up to this day. So I love the warning. I think it's a great illustration and a careful check on all of us who are trying to do cultural accommodation to make sure that the message remains the same while our methods change endlessly. All right. Thanks. That's my take on this particular video. Like it. Thank you for sending it in. If you've got something you want to send in and hear our take on, please send it to social@ac3.org. And until next time, see you on Pastor. Have you seen this?